Welcome to the Jaybe show on Revolutionary Blackout Network. I am your host, James Fauntleroy. So good to see all of you guys joining me on this beautiful Sunday afternoon. It is, January 25th, 2026, and we are live. Good to see all of you guys joining me. Let me put that down just a little bit. Good to see all of you guys here. Just to let you guys know, the Jaybe show is typically every single Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you guys would like to catch me here, if you guys have not already, please go ahead and give a like to the stream. Helps me out very much to be able to reach more people so we can encourage, inspire, and as well activate. If you guys have not, you can also join our mailing list at revolutionaryblackout.substack.com. Gives you email notifications whenever we go live. Also, if you guys would like to email us with any stories or any encouraging words that you may find, you guys can always do that at revolutionaryblackout@outlook.com. You guys have that there. So good to see every single one of you guys here in the year of our Lord 2026. We have a couple of stories we're going to get into today, as always. But first, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say hello to people in the chat and anybody and everybody that is joining in. It is so good to see all of you guys watching from YouTube, Twitter, and Rumble. So we have Kime coming in saying JB in the place to be, and he's got what it takes to rock the mic, right? Absolutely. Thank you so very much for Kime for joining in for this stream. And so one of the things that we're going to be covering today is two different stories. One having to deal with jobs and the other one having to deal with homelessness. These are going to be heavier subjects, but I also have something a little bit lighter as well to talk about towards the end to share with you guys as well, just to, make you feel a little bit lighter at the end. So we're going to be getting in that as well. Let me see. Kime says, is it cold in Orlando? No, it is not cold. In fact, I got the air conditioning on. I think it's going to reach 85 today in Orlando. But then, in true Orlando fashion, we will have a wind chill in the 20s on Tuesday. So it is going to be drastic in 2 days. So it's going to be a drastic change. So yes. Also, yes, Kime says, I'm double dipping. Sabby went live early because of the extreme weather in New England. That, and as well, I think there's a game today, and I don't think she wants to miss it. Sabby, she's a football. She's a football and basketball lady. So she got to catch the games. So it's probably also a twofold purpose. The weather, yeah, but also the game. So she's a lover of the game. So as well. Yeah, she's a sports fanatic in that way. She's definitely a New Englander. All right, guys. So we're going to be talking about a couple of these news stories. So we're going to be getting into these. Let's take a look at the thumbnail that we're going to be talking about today so we can get a scope of what we're going to be discussing for today. So we have we're going to be discussing a little bit later in the show, Black American recession. So we are going to be talking about a recession among a particular group here in the United States that a lot of people aren't really touching on, but we need to touch on this because there are people going through a recession. And as we always say, when it starts with Black people, then everything else follows. But first, we're going to be talking about homelessness, the tragic price of capitalism. We're going to be discussing this story that I think that also needs to be rang out loud for people because this situation is getting worse as we dive deeper into the abyss of late stage capitalism. So we'll be getting into that right now. So a lot of you who have known me for the last almost 5 years that we've been doing RBN, as well as me doing on my own channel, have known me to talk about housing and homelessness because this is something that's very close to my heart. And I know what it's like to be a child that's homeless, as well as I know what it's like to be homeless as an adult. And so because of this is very close to my heart. And we're now seeing a rise of homelessness among children and infants in this country. And this makes me think that you have to be in a deeply failed state if you are allowing the most vulnerable among us to go without housing, and then you want to blame individuals instead of the system. Let's get into the story because I think this is a deep one that we need to get into. We're going to be going into this article here. So this is going to be out of the Tucson Sentinel. So let me raise the level of this so that everybody can see and read. And this is actually a story out of Boston. So let's get into this. All right. So it's titled, Homelessness is Rising Fast Among Surprising Group, Infants and Toddlers. Special child care centers for these kids allow parents to work and get back on their feet. So this came out just a couple of days ago. Let's get into this. So it talks about how a mother who has, fell into hard times. Now she's homeless along with her kids. And so I'm going to start here. It says, but in a city where fast food wages aren't enough to pay the rent, her efforts felt futile. And then a month after moving in with her family, her mother's landlord told her the apartment was overcrowded and she had to leave. Kirian and her girls, that 7 years old and 8 months old, moved into a homeless shelter where her depression and anxiety worsened. She said, I tried my best, but it's not their home. And so it's not like if she has a 7-year-old and she's 31, it's not like she was a teenage mom. It's not like she was somebody who's careless. And on top of it, she was working and trying to make a life for her kids. But because of the way the system operates, it's nearly impossible for somebody like her to be able to move in this area, to have a place like this in this area. And this is a predominantly Black and brown area within Boston, is Roxbury. And if anybody wants to know more about Boston, especially the layout, the racial makeup of the Boston greater area and Boston proper, then I recommend that you go over to our sister Sappy Sab's channel and just go ahead and really go to any of her videos, and she will talk about what it's like in Boston. She also came out with a recent documentary called Remove Black Erasure in Boston. It was an amazing documentary, and she is now basically going all over to share the documentary with people, but it talks about the plight of Black people, especially within Boston area. And so Roxbury is one of those places where you see a lot of gentrification, as well as the racial disparities within places like Boston as well. Let's continue on. It says Kirian's children had joined the growing ranks of very young children experiencing homelessness. Between 2021 and 2023, the number of homeless infants and toddlers increased in 48 states and the District of Columbia. The most recent estimates found that in 2003, nearly 450,000 infants and toddlers in the United States were in families that lacked a stable place to live. That was a 23% increase compared to 2021, according to the report released last year by the nonprofit Schoolhouse Connection in partnership with Poverty Solutions at the University of Michigan. You literally have a 23% increase in infants and toddlers homelessness. This is crazy. The fact that we actually live in a nation where the most vulnerable among us are experiencing homelessness and nothing really is being done about it. And everybody wants to talk about affordable housing. Affordable for whom? Affordable is subjective. So therefore, if you really want to talk about housing, we need to talk about a housing first. But one of the biggest issues that we have is that housing first initiatives, even if they were implemented, they were so easily removed. So this also puts, fire among the Democrats as well. And on top of that, housing first initiatives were also gutted by Donald Trump. So the problem is both parties have either left the door open for the Republicans, and it's like, are they ignorant Are they stupid? Are they just, or are they nefarious? Like, which one is it? And I'm starting to lean towards the latter, because you have the people who are experiencing this, and people say, well, it's an individual problem and they need to solve their own issues, pull themselves up by the bootstraps. But 450,000 infants and toddlers? That doesn't sound like an individual problem. That sounds systemic. And so this is why I keep saying that you cannot fix systemic problems with individual solutions. A systemic problem requires systemic solutions. And so therefore, in this country, what we're seeing now is the most vulnerable among us don't really matter. And if they don't matter, well, then that means the system is completely inadequate and is anti-human. And therefore, if we want the human species to continue, at least in this part of the world, within the northwestern part of our hemisphere, then we need to change the system overall. Let's continue on. Says the numbers could be even higher, experts worry, because hidden homeless children, those who are doubled up in homes with family or friends, or living in a hotel, may not be captured in tallies until they start school. And this is also some of the homelessness that I've experienced. So I have experienced homelessness as a toddler. I know what it's like to be 3 years old walking the streets with my mom and my brothers. I know what that's like. I also know what it's like to be homeless and having to double up with a friend and family members because we didn't have a place to live. I know what that's like. I also know what it's like to have to live in hotels and motels. And I've had family members that had to do that. And that is also homelessness. And it breaks my heart to no end to see a school bus pull up to an extended stay motel to pick up kids for school. That's no way to live. And these kids, no doubt, have siblings. And so they have to share one room with them and their parents. So if you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 kids, they are constantly around their parents, no privacy, none. And then everything they own is inside that hotel room. So it's crowded on top of that. There's no functioning kitchen. They may have a hot plate, a small little mini fridge, but that's it. They got to wash their dishes in the bathroom sink. If they have clothes, they may have to wash them in the tub if they don't have enough money to be able to afford a laundromat. And then where do they dry their clothes? Well, they got to set them out to dry. And so people want to talk about, well, they need to pick themselves up by the bootstraps. It's kind of hard to do that, especially when these rooms are charging an arm and a leg just for you to be able to live with them in them weekly. These places are charging $400, $500, $600 a week just to be able to live in. Per week. I didn't say per month. I said per week. So imagine paying between $1,600 and $2,000 a month for one room. That's it. And you mean to tell me while we live here in Florida, it's the 9th most expensive state in the United States. Just go ahead and check out the National Low Income Housing Out of Reach report, and they'll show you that you need to make at least $37.27 an hour in order to be able to afford a 2-bedroom apartment in the state of Florida. And so now you have infants and toddlers that know nothing of privacy, that know nothing of having actual space to be able to walk around. I've known some parents who literally have to go to the mall just so that their kids can run around because there's no space in the apartments. Not apartments, I'm sorry, the motel room. And so this is what kids are dealing with. On my channel just a few weeks ago, maybe a couple months ago, was it either my channel or this channel? But it doesn't matter. They literally shut down an extended stay motel not too far from me, and they took their rent, and then the next day they completely shut the operation down. And the people had no place to live. They paid rent, and then the next day they had no place to live. They had to be evicted. It was like 70 families. And these are people that are trying their damnedest to be able to survive, to keep their head above water. And they can't do it because we live in a system that needs people in poverty in order to continue, so that it can do, so that the people who are the corporate parasites can have another yacht, have another Bugatti, have another house that they have with more rooms than they can sleep in. Let's continue on. It also says this: high prices for diapers and formula, the exorbitant cost of childcare, the rising cost of living, and rising maternal mental health challenges all contribute to the growing rate of homelessness among very young children. In 2024, 1/3 of infants and toddlers were in families that struggle to make ends meet. 1/3, 30%, according to the nonprofit infant and toddler advocacy organization 0 to 3. Let's talk about this, right? High prices for diapers and formula. If you are not in the United States, I'm going to tell you something that's probably going to make you go, what in the hell is going on in this country? Go to, especially to a store near the more disadvantaged areas in the United States. Go to a Walmart, go to a CVS, a Walgreens, go to maybe a Dollar General, Family Dollar. Go to these places where they carry infant formula, and you will see that they are put behind plexiglass and under lock and key so that people won't steal for their kids. And people will say, oh, but it's not for them. It's really just for people who are trying to buy it so they can hoard it, so they can sell it even higher in price gouge. Baby, if we actually gave these things away for either extremely low cost or for free, we wouldn't have, there would be no need to price gouge. I'm sorry, why are we making it, why are we putting a paywall so that infants can eat? Why are we putting a paywall there? It's not like some grown-ass man is buying formula so he can put it inside of his tumbler and shake it and drink it while he's at the gym. Drinking it like it's some whey protein. The hell? We're talking about baby formula, and it's under lock and key in the United States. If you are from outside this country, I want you to know the United States is not just a rogue state, it is a failed state. But its failure is on purpose because it requires people, the majority of people, to be in poverty so that a few can have more than everybody else combined. That's the system that we live in. Let's continue on in this because I wanted to break this down as well. High prices for diapers and formula, the exorbitant cost of child care. In fact, look, say what you want about Zohran Mamdani. I have my many critiques of him, and I really think that he is there to really just kind of soften the Democratic Party so that people think that we can actually change things through the Democratic Party, which we can't. But at the same time, I am willing to say that making childcare free in New York is a good thing. That is a good thing. And that is something that will save I think upwards of $20,000 per year. Because childcare per child per month is between $5,000 and $6,000 per month per child. So at minimum, you're saving $20,000 a year just so that you can have childcare. So imagine what these parents are going through and here's the thing, they have to work. They have to work in order to survive. And so they have to send their kid to childcare, but that childcare costs exorbitant amounts of money. And you have some parents that fall in between the gap because they make too much to be able to get childcare for free, and they don't make enough to be able to take care and watch their child without having childcare. That's just how it is. And we don't know these parents, their situation. People will go, well, why aren't there certain family members in their life, like the grandmother or the grandfather or aunts or uncles or things like that? We don't know their situation. It could be that they came from an abusive household and they don't want their parents to be around their kids. Who knows what it is? But childcare should not be paywalled either. I'm going to say it loud and I'm going to say it proud with my full chest. Childcare should not be paywalled. If you want parents to be able to work, then you need to get rid of that paywall. How are we going to do it, Jaybe? Instead of giving all these tax subsidies to big pharma and big tech and these fossil fuel industries and all that, instead, let's start giving it actually to the people so that they can actually be able to take care of their kids. Or let's start paying them enough so that one parent at least could stay home if it's a two-parent household. If it's not a two-parent household, we still should provide free childcare to every single child in this country, full stop. I don't care your economic level. I don't care. Your economic level does not matter. It doesn't mean diddly squat. Every single person. Because once you start to, means test it, then that's when it's like, oh, well, maybe we should take this down. But if it's not means testing, is given universally, then everybody benefits. And then everybody is like, no, I don't want to get rid of it. Same thing like Social Security. Is Social Security means tested? By age, yes. But by economic ability, no. Because everybody gets their Social Security check. But that's the thing, right? Now, let's go on here. Let's go to maternal mental health challenges. Do we have universal nationalized healthcare in this country? Absolutely not. What would it be included in that? Also mental health care. How many women are in postpartum care? They're experiencing postpartum depression. You literally have countries where they will send an expert, a childcare expert, to help you with your kid for like the first couple of years. I heard that they do that in France. They will automatically, without charge, send a childcare expert to help you with your child, with your infant, with your toddler. They will do that. And then you don't have to have as much worry. And you can either accept it or reject it. It's up to you. Let's say you reject it because you have in-laws that are coming to help you as well. Okay, cool, fine. It's optional. but it's there for you if you need it without charge, right? And don't come to me going, well, how are they going to make their money? Because if you do it, nothing's for free. No shit, Sherlock. Nothing's for free. It gets paid for, but these people would be paid for by the people. Collectively. It's the one word that you guys hate. Pay for through what? Taxation. Oh my God, taxes. If you actually pay for the things that you actually would like to have through taxes, you actually don't mind paying them as long as it's going to the thing that you actually want. The problem is we have a country where we pay taxes and it goes towards things that we don't want, like war, like subsidies for these big ass companies that are shafting us every single chance that they get. And then they're committing imperialism in other countries, wanting to take over their resources. Yeah, no. I don't want that money to go to them. I want it to go to the people. This is why we also need universal health care as well. So housing instability is dire for anyone, but particularly for young children whose brains are rapidly growing and developing. Studies show that young children who are homeless often lag behind their peers in language development and literacy and struggle to learn self-regulation skills like being able to calm themselves when feeling angry or sad or transition calmly to new activities. They also may experience long-term health and learning challenges. I'm going to say this as well. This is also part of the economic issue. Because if you lag behind in these things, guess what? To be able to develop these things and get into employment in order to be able to take care of yourself as an adult, you need to have these things developed. And if you don't, then guess what? Economically, you will fall behind as well, all because you were homeless as a little kid. And so you're setting the future workers up for failure by not giving them a solid foundation. And this is one of the biggest issues. Because class war does not have an age limit. Babies in the working class are enemies of the corporate parasites as well. Babies of the working class, babies of the poor class are also their enemies because they don't give a damn about anybody who is not of their pedigree. They don't care. They will risk the life of your little one and sell you down the river if it means that they get a little extra money on their dividend checks. So I'm going to leave this as well, this article in the chat for you guys. But I also want to get to this other story, this other piece of the story, because the tragedy of capitalism really is hitting home for so many. And so one of the things that I also want to share, let me share this before I move on, is this. It says homelessness is rising fast among surprising group, infants and toddlers. So it says special college centers allow for parents to work and get back on their feet. This is basically the same article. But that 23% of infants and toddlers, the growth of 23% over the last couple of years is massive. I want you to think 450,000 infants and toddlers alone are experiencing homelessness. I'm not talking about their older brothers and sisters that are in kindergarten, first, second, third, fourth, fifth grade. I'm not talking about their adolescent older siblings. I'm not talking about the teenagers. I'm talking about just the infants and toddlers, the ones that will be in nursery school. That's what I'm talking about. Just them alone. We're not talking about their parents. We're not talking about their grandparents either. That's a whole another group of people. That many homeless people. 450,000 infants and toddlers. Do you give a damn? If you do, Sabby did a mutual aid workshop yesterday. Where were you? I was there. Learning how to do mutual aid and helping our communities out. I dare you to join the next one. I dare you. Call to action. Do mutual aid to help out these little ones. If you help out these little ones, you're also helping out their siblings and their parents as well. You're helping out the community. Let's go to the next piece of this that I wanted to talk about as well. Because one thing I think is abundantly clear is that the people who are affected the most are people who also are marginalized the most. Let's get into this because this is sad, but it's no surprise. A homeless woman was frozen in Detroit. Let's get into it.
Now, you know, these dangerously cold temperatures are already leading to a heartbreaking discovery in downtown Mount Clemens.
And it's proof of just how threatening this weather truly is. A homeless woman was found unresponsive behind a building in the bitter cold. She was declared dead at the hospital.
7 News Detroit reporter Randy Wembley is in Mount Clemens listening to nonprofit leaders fueling urgent calls for action, and a city commissioner now on a mission to prevent future tragedies.
Yes, right back here behind this priority waste dumpster with no shoes on.
This is where a waste disposal driver made a grim discovery, finding 53-year-old Moneque Cook while emptying a dumpster. It happened early Tuesday morning behind Shane Giannino's building on North Main Street in Mount Clemens. Cook was found barefoot and unresponsive, exposed to the elements. She was rushed to a nearby hospital where she was pronounced dead.
This really needs to be a wake-up call, you know, because even tomorrow's even going to be colder.
The tragedy is now raising urgent concerns about the plight of the unhoused as temperatures nosedive to the coldest we've seen this winter.
Mount Clemens has the largest concentration in the county of unhoused individuals.
City Commissioner Spencer Calhoun is leading a newly formed task force aimed at addressing homelessness in Mount Clemens. The effort will rely in part on data gathered during the county's point-in-time count and annual census of the homeless.
There's no easy solution to the issue of homelessness. What I do know is not another person should die on our streets.
April Fiddler and Scott Joy are from McCrest, a homeless services agency in Mount Clemens. They say their shelter is already at capacity as the need continues to grow.
The issue is there's not enough funding to provide all the services needed for emergency services during this time of year.
Securing more funding is a priority, Macomb County Commissioner Michael Howard says he's committed to.
So let's get into this because here's the thing. So basically, a black woman froze to death because she's homeless. Do we care about people like that? Some of you say you do. Some of you say you do. But then, what about your actions? What about your actions? What do they say? And so here's the thing. When it comes to people who are unhoused and homeless, they are the people who are in our system that are seen as an example by the ultra wealthy. Basically, the ultra wealthy says, accept the exploitation that we do to you, or you'll end up like this person. And then we get afraid, we get scared, because when we do, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't work, in order to be able to live and afford, our housing. But what I'm saying is that this system exacerbates this problem, and it encourages this problem to continue. And so the only way to really save ourselves and our future is really to get rid of the system, so that we don't have any more Moneque Cooks, because this continues to keep happening. And now we have homeless shelters that are already at capacity. Already. And then so if they're at capacity, where are these unhoused people to go? They get stopped at the door. They're freezing cold. They're at risk for getting hypothermia. And then they have to go and try to search for another place to warm to be able to survive. And so they got to walk further. Who knows how far it is? It could be a mile, it could be 2 miles, 3 miles, 4 miles, 5 miles, in the snow, in the brittle cold. This is why the system cannot continue. Let's keep going.
He's committed to, arguing it's not just compassionate, but practical.
It actually costs the county more when someone passes away in the cold or when someone is homeless on the street. It's a greater burden on the county financially than for us to actually step in and be proactive with our resources.
Moneque Cook's family says she was loved and cared for, and they did all they could to help her get back on her feet.
The Macomb County Sheriff's Office says the investigation into Cook's death is ongoing. In the meantime, if you or someone you know needs somewhere warm to go, head to our website, wxyz.com, for a list of resources. In Mount Clemens, I'm Randy Wembley, 7 News Detroit.
And we're definitely...
So another thing I also want to pay attention to was the fact that she didn't have any shoes on. What happened to her as well? And this is why being housed is also another issue, because being housed provides further safety. Is it completely safe? No, because it's safe, relatively more safer than being out in the streets, especially as a woman. Men are also unsafe too, because guess what? Men get attacked too. But being a woman, is the safety is the being unsafe is higher. Let's be real. And so maybe she was mugged. Maybe somebody stole something from her. Maybe something worse. I don't know, and I hope not. But at the same time, the fact that she didn't have any shoes on in the brittle cold like that, if she had been housed, most likely she would still be alive. We probably wouldn't even know her name. But now, unfortunately, we do, and not in a good way. And so this is why housing justice is so important as well. And is this exacerbated also because of race and gender? Unfortunately, yeah, it is. That's part of the system. And so as people are experiencing brutal cold right now, like, have you seen the Midwest right now? It's snowfall and ice in North Texas. They're expecting to see some snow in North Florida within the next couple days. We're going to have a wind chill in the 20s here in Central Florida. And so what about the people who are unhoused? What about them? This is why we encourage people and we try to practice the example of doing mutual aid and building dual power among our communities as well. Because this should never happen again. It should be never again for any of these atrocities. The genocide of Native Americans, never again. The enslavement and mistreatment of chattel slaves, Black Americans in this country, never again. The millions of Congolese that were murdered in a Holocaust by King Leopold, never again. The murder of millions of Jews, as well as millions upon millions of Germans that resisted Nazis, never again. Hundreds of thousands of Palestinians that were murdered in Gaza, never again. What happened in East Timor, never again. The battle on Blair Mountain, never again. Hiroshima, never again. These things, we should have a never again. Homelessness in America, never again. Hunger, pollution, none of these things should exist anymore. We can actually change the system, but it involves us getting together. And so what are we going to do? And I'm not asking you to do this as one single person, because it will never be done by just one single person. This ain't no Marvel movie. It's not going to be done. It's not going to be saved by one hero. And it's not going to be saved by that little small group. This ain't the Avengers. This ain't the Justice League. This is necessary for everybody to get together. Many hands make the load light. So this is why it's so important for us to get together and change the system fundamentally as one block against these parasites that continue to dominate over us. Because our future depends on it. And this is why liberation for many marginalized groups is so important, because it's all interconnected. And so it's a call to action. The call to action is to get together with your family, your friends, others who are like-minded to do mutual aid and build dual power. Next time Sabby has a mutual aid workshop, I'll make sure to announce it here, so that if you don't know how to do it, we will show you. I do mutual aid as often as I can. I plan on doing it next month as well. Even if you can't start a mutual aid group yourself, there are others you can join in as well. But this is the time. This is the time. If you really want to protect the future, if you really want to protect yourselves and your neighbors, the moment is now. Because infants, toddlers being homeless, people freezing to death, that should spark something in you. Go ahead and give a like to the stream. Thank you so very much. Let's get into the comments and then we shall move on. But first, let me do this. Let me thank the patrons on Patreon, because without you guys, we would not be able to have this channel. So thank you so very much to everybody on Patreon, because what we do here at Revolutionary Blackout Network is we try to not just talk the talk, but walk the walk. Mutual aid is being done constantly through the members of RBN. I know Sebi did a few mutual aid events. Rome has done many mutual aid events as well. Nick was in Chicago with Rome and helping out with Fred Hampton Jr. And then I did, I think at least 8 or 9 mutual aid events last year. And so I think this is important because you guys allow us to be able to not just do this, but also inform you guys of why the system operates the way it does and what we can do in order to make a new system that actually is conducive for all people. And so I just want to thank you guys for being patrons on this channel. You guys keep the lights on for us, and we deeply appreciate it very much. So thank you. All right, so let's go to the comments in the chat. Let me go to check to see if we have any Rumble rants. And you see any comments there. And then if not, then we shall go into the, let me see. All right. Okay. So I don't see any Rumble rants. All right. All right, let's go into here. All right, so let me see here. Whoop. Pat coming on and saying, hey, everyone, good to see you, Pat. Let me see. Crazy Cat says, what kind of country has homeless children? A failed system. CBC voter coming in saying, happy Sunday at Jaybe. Good to see a CBC voter. Let me see. Stoop Sign says the extended stay hotel I lived in from May to July of last year had a kitchenette with a laundry. Yep, several hundred a week. Yep, absolutely. I literally have family members that's actually staying in a motel right now. So I trust me, I know. Goldilocks says, I've done that with my husband and 2 daughters and a friend for 7 months before we got into our home 3 years ago. That was after being at the Salvation Army during the pandemic. Yeah. And I'll be honest with you, I don't like the Salvation Army because they exploit unhoused people, but you got to do what you got to do. You know, them and Goodwill, they exploit, but you have no choice. You have to go to them. Goldilocks continues, says that he had a job and we had 6 months rent saved up and ready to go. We were lucky because the motel closed down the month we moved out. That was before really bad. Okay. Thank you so very much for that. Frosty Mug says, remember when Democrats got complete control of government, let the child tax credits expire, kept Trump's tax cuts, and went on vacation with $40 million facing eviction during a pandemic. I remember. Pepperidge Farm remembers. Yep. So Democrats, they let this happen too, because it's kind of like being in a 2-parent household where you have one parent doing the abuse and the other parent knows the abuse is happening, but yet they don't do anything about it. And so therefore they're neglecting the child as well. If you have one parent that's neglecting the child and the other parent doing the abuse of the child, then does one parent get to stay keeping the child and the other one goes into jail or prison? No, you arrest both parents and you both put them in jail because one allowed the abuse to continue and one was doing the abuse. And so therefore, both are complicit in the abuse of the American people. Both parties, both Democrat and Republicans. This is why I say leave both parties. This is why I say both parties are trash, because they don't do a damn thing for you. They only do a damn thing for the corporate parasites that fund them. Like Butch Ware said, who funds you runs you. And guess who runs the Democrat and Republican Party? Or I should say the Demo Republican Party. It's the billionaires, right? SG says, it's so sad that people cannot afford baby formula. And the thing is, it shouldn't even be about affordability. That's the crazy part. It shouldn't even be about affordability. Wow. Yeah, Stoop Sign says, yeah, when I worked in retail, we locked up the formula. Yep, here you go. Baby formula. Whoever this is says, so we're supposed to watch you rant. You're doing it right now. And also, you're watching. So, I mean, look, if you're going to complain, if you don't like it, you're using Windows, no doubt. You can press the red X and just leave. It's funny when people say stuff like this. But anyways, Roger Meadows, good to see you, says, good afternoon. Double live streaming you and Savvy. If two-parent household makes remote work a thing. Yeah. Let me see. Pat says, in the U.S. doesn't have universal preschool, so these children start preschool 2 years behind their more affluent peers. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Let me see. Me, myself, and I says, I'm really saddened. Yeah. But here's the thing. That's a natural reaction. And that's actually a healthy reaction because you have a heart. But do not let the sadness linger and then it causes you to be inactive. Don't let it paralyze you. Use that as fuel to act on behalf of your communities. That's the thing. That's the reason why I talk about these stories. Use it as fuel to do more, not just for yourself, but for your neighbors and as well as your fellow human beings on this planet. And look, I'm going to tell you something right now. Let me put this down for a second. I'm going to tell you something right now. One of the most bittersweet feelings you will feel is when you do mutual aid and then you have this warm feeling in your heart that you actually did what you could for the people while educating. But at the same time, when you run out of what you're trying to help them with, you know, whether it be food or clothing or something like that, you also have this bitter feeling that you didn't do enough. But the best part about time is that you can always do it again. And so that's the thing. And then you can grow your numbers and do it again and help out more people. The purpose of mutual aid is to be the government that you want to see. That's the purpose. And I think a lot of times we get saddened by a lot of these stories, but that sadness can be the fire that helps us to continue to do more. So use that as your fuel. Okay. And trust me, I feel you completely. Stoop Sign says, I tend to work low paying jobs and I still give water, Arizona, sometimes food, often smokes to all the homeless people in my neighborhood and never get a tax write-off for these donations. Because that's what mutual aid is about. It's not about what you can benefit from. It's from, how you can help your neighbors. Mutual aid is not charity. And I applaud you for doing what you can. I would encourage you to do it along with other people. Don't make it just a solo thing. Try to get together with other people to do it as well. But I applaud you because that's what we need to be doing to always keep our minds on our fellow neighbors, right? Let me see. Here we go. Good to see Zoya in the chat. Hey, Zoya. Says hit the like. Yes, absolutely. Thank you so very much for that, Zoya. All righty. And let me see if I have, let me see. All right. Okay, guys. So Going to go into the next subject that we're going to be covering today. I think this is also really important that we get into this too. And so let's get into this. Let me take this down. Let's move on. All right. So, of course, we talked about homelessness, the tragic price of capitalism. And now we will talk about Black American recession. This one is deep. So we'll get into it right here. Just get this out here so that I'm prepared. Okay. Just give me 1 second. Let me see. I think I have, let me see. Here we go. What is that? Oh, okay. That is nothing. Alrighty. All right, let's get into this. Black jobs. That was something that was said by President Trump. And a lot of people said to themselves, yeah, black jobs definitely are diminishing within this country. Unfortunately, because of the job numbers, the growth has really come almost to a standstill. And anybody that's unemployed right now that's looking for a job, they feel that, myself included. And so this is something that I have been noticing as I've been looking for a job since I got my transplant. And I know a lot of people are feeling it too. And so I want to get into this, and then I'm going to incorporate it with what is happening among Black Americans in this country. So let's get into this story here. It says 2025 was the worst year for hiring since 2020. The U.S. added 50,000 jobs last month, a mixed report capping off a difficult year for the labor markets. Let's get into this. It says the U.S. economy added just 50,000 jobs in December, capping off the worst year for hiring since 2020, when the COVID pandemic brought the global economy to a standstill. Save for 2020, last year's ranks as the poorest year for job creation since 2009 and the global financial crisis. Just 584,000 jobs were created in 2025, far below the more than 2 million added in each of the prior 2 years, and the more than 4 million hires in 2022, the height of the post-pandemic recovery. Last year, the labor market added jobs at an average pace of 48,000 jobs per month after revisions. So here's the table. And look, I'm just going to, let me shrink this a little bit just so you guys can see the table. Take a look at that. That's massive, massive difference. So as far as the new jobs added, I mean, look, October of 2024, 44,000, right? Then it goes back into a high in December of 2024. But then it just trends lower in all of 2025. So then by the time you hit June, lost 13,000 jobs. And then in August, lost 26,000. And then in October, lost 173,000 jobs. And so then 173,000 jobs lost, and then what, 56,000 in November, and then another 50,000 in December. I mean, that doesn't make up for the rest of the 173. So basically 73,000 jobs that also were still at deficit. So it is wild, because there's a lot of people who are literally looking for work right now, and they still just can't find jobs. And yet the unemployment rate is higher. So it says the slowdown in hiring was not a complete surprise. Government employment plummeted in 2025, especially in October, with tens of thousands of federal employees whose jobs had been eliminated under billionaire Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency came to the official end of their government service. Now, here's something I want to tell you guys about as well, because some people miss this, but I know people like myself, Savvy Sabs, and many others, especially in Black independent media, spoke about this. But over 300,000 Black women lost their jobs. Just Black women. We didn't talk about Black men. And it was primarily due to Elon Musk's Doge job cuts out of the federal government. Meanwhile, a lot of those jobs are actually being recovered, because what Elon Musk did was foolish. And so now they're like secretly, like quietly, like hiring them back, because they realize, oh my God, we cut too much. And so that's a lot of people who were laid off. Now, let's continue on. President Donald Trump's administration has also pursued aggressive immigration restrictions. And as a result, many companies have taken a cautious approach to hiring non-citizens. Economists have said that rising immigration in recent years helped to address the persistent U.S. labor shortages and bolstered the jobs market as a whole. For months ahead of this report, the overall labor market has been shrouded in fog and conflicting signals after the longest U.S. government shutdown in history delayed the release of official data. It says even though most employers, save for a few notable companies, have largely refrained from mass layoffs, people seeking work will find roles harder to come by than they were a year ago. The slowing nature of the job market will also likely make it harder for workers to switch jobs voluntarily. And here's this point about the voluntarily part, is that a lot of these companies, a lot of these corporations, they know that you can't just find another job easily. So then they're going to exploit that, because then they're going to demand more from you. They're going to pay you even less. Or the time it comes for your pay raise, either they will minimize the pay raise or they won't give you a pay raise at all and make some stupid dumbass excuse. And then you have to accept the exploitation, because it's either accept the exploitation or be laid off and then have to go maybe 6 months to a year, maybe longer without a job, because you're trying to find something and nobody's hiring. And so that's one of the biggest issues that we face here now in this country. And then on top of that, you have a lot of these companies, they are actually working more with skeleton crews, because they realize that, oh, well, all we got to do is just work our workers even harder. And yeah, they'll be stressed out and they'll be making, a lot less equivalent to the job that they were doing. But hey, at least the shareholders get theirs. At least our dividend checks are bigger. And so that's how it goes. It says the unemployment rate, which has trended higher for months, fell to just 4.4% in December. The decline was due to a part of adjustments applied by the Bureau of Labor Statistics, so the decline is less than it appears on its face. Job growth during the months of October and November were also revised down significantly Friday. After initially reporting the economy lost 105,000 jobs in October, the Bureau of Labor Statistics says that the total is now a loss of 173,000. November also shrank, with hiring being revised down from an increase of 64,000 to a growth of only 56,000. This is in the December to remember type jobs. That's from Eric Merlis. Says the unemployment rate and broader labor force measures showed little movement in December. So here it says, meanwhile, wage data show that an average hourly earnings clocked at $37.02 in December. It's kind of funny when they say that, because here's the thing. That average is probably incorporated with people who make more than six figures. So you get the average within there at $37.02 an hour, which I call BS, because most, if not almost all of us, are making somewhere below $30 an hour, and we're barely hanging on. But what do I know, right? It says up 3.8% from a year earlier. Wage data is closely watched as a gauge of labor market tightness and key signal for inflation pressures as the Federal Reserve continues to weigh future interest rate cuts. So it says Wall Street had expected a gain of 73,000 jobs last month and a slight drop in the unemployment rate to 4.5%, according to economists surveyed by Dow Jones. So they're saying that the labor market is cooling but not cracking. But the problem is no matter what they say, like the real economy, it sucks. And if you really want to know what the real economy is, start looking at people who are late on their rent, late on their mortgage payments, delinquencies on car payments as well. One thing that I learned recently is that a lot of auto parts stores are now growing because a lot of people do not have the money to buy a new car. And so a lot of them are now keeping the cars that they have and doing more maintenance on them, which means that they need parts. They need supplies from auto parts stores, which is increasing the revenue from these auto parts stores because people are less likely to get a new car. And so this means that a lot of people are struggling because if it's costs less to do more major repairs on your car than it is to get a new car, then they're just going to do that. And so think about this. Think about all the people who are now starting to go without meals, or they are going more to food banks. This is happening in this country. I would hate to be in sales right now, especially if you're in sales like furniture sales, if you're in sales for like upgrading homes, things like that, because business must be slow as hell right now, especially people who, if they're refinancing, it's not to improve their house. It's just to be able to make the bills. It's getting bad. It's getting bad. But this is just for the overall economy. What about Black Americans? Let's get into this, because I think if it's this way for the overall Americans, then of course we know it's going to be worse for Black Americans. Let's get into this. Black unemployment reaches 7.5% nationwide as new report warns DC faces sharpening risks. Let's get into this here. So, Black unemployment says climbed to 7.5% by December of 2025, a level that would signal a recession if it were experienced across the nation as a whole. For Washington, D.C., where government employment and federal policy decisions are deeply intertwined with the local economy, the new State of the Dream 2026 report offers a stark warning about how national retrenchment is already showing up at home. I want to focus on this part that says Black unemployment climbed to 7.5% by 2025, a level that would signal a recession if it were experienced across the nation as a whole. So this is exactly why I said Black people are in a recession. And this ain't new to Black Americans, because we are at recessions constantly. Remember when I said, and I said this before, I said for Black Americans, for Black people, fascism is a Tuesday. Well, recessions and depressions are a Wednesday. Because we know what it's like. Because it happens to us all the time. Figure that in, as well as us also being less likely to be hired as well. It happens, and it continues to keep happening in this system. Which is why it is important that we also use intersectionality to show that being Black in this country is a subclass of the working class. So the likelihood of us being able to be hired, to be able to work these jobs, is even less. And so look at how things are among the Black community. We're not okay. We haven't been okay for 400 years, but that's a whole nother story. And I think it's important that we reconcile with this, that we talk about this. It says, released this week, the Joint Center for Political Economic Studies, State of the Dream 2026, From Regression to Signs of a Black Recession, examines how 2025 marked a year of economic reversal for Black America, driven by rising unemployment, federal job losses, weakened consumer protections, and policy shifting affecting technology, housing, and infrastructure. The report draws an analysis from the Joint Center along partners including United for a Fair Economy, the Center for Economic Policy Research, National Community Reinvestment Coalition, and the Onyx Impact Group. In the district, the warning signs are already visible. The DC Department of Employment Services reported that the district's seasonally adjusted unemployment rate stood at 6.5% in November of 2025, up from 5.3% a year earlier. So it is a microcosm of what is actually happening. It says researchers estimate that if Black workers had maintained the 2024 prime age employment rate, roughly 260,000 more Black adults would have been working in 2025, including about 200,000 prime age Black women. For Washington, the erosion of federal employment carries heavy weight. The report documents the elimination of roughly 271,000 federal jobs nationwide in less than a year, a move that disproportionately affected Black workers who have long relied on government service as a pathway to stable middle-income employment. Prior to the cuts, Black Americans made up nearly 19% of the federal workforce, far exceeding their share of the overall labor force. So I'm telling you right now, we are continuing to see this is something that a lot of people aren't talking about. And I want to make this abundantly clear. What happens to the Black community in the United States is the beginning of what you will see everywhere in the United States. Look at ICE, right? What happened with Philando Castile in Minneapolis, Minnesota a few years ago? When he also was a legal gun owner and he said to the officer, yes, I have a legal gun, I have a permit and I have a gun. He did not reach for it. He did not try to do anything funny. And he was shot in his car next to his girlfriend, his fiance and his daughter while they were in the car. The police officer shot and killed Philando Castile. Next thing you know, another similar thing happened. Remember a few months ago, we talked about the murder of Sonia Massey at the hands of police. Remember that name, Sonia Massey? She was shot in the face by police officers after she called the cops because she thought that there was an intruder coming in her house. And she was gunned down. Now, look at the white community. Who got shot in the face in the beginning of January? Moneque Cook. And then afterwards, who got shot as well? Now, as of yesterday, a white man who had a permit to have a gun on him, and he was not pointing at ICE agents, and he was gunned down as well. And what did the government do? They justified their murder and now are trying to do character assassinations on them, just like they did Black people. And we didn't even talk about the murder of Keith Porter Jr. that happened on December 31st during New Year's Eve. And he was also a legal gun owner who was shot by an off-duty ICE agent. So this goes to show, if they do it to us, they'll do it to you. Guess what? The jobless numbers, if it's higher among Black Americans, guess what? Guess what follows? It's always a direct correlation, right? When Black people start experiencing higher unemployment, guess who follows? It follows the rest of the country. And guess what's going to happen to y'all? If you're not paying attention to the plight of Black America, guess what? Then you will find yourself up a shit creek without a paddle and ain't even got a boat to ride in. And guess what? Guess what's about to happen? If it's happening to us, you're next. And we said it's time and time and time and time again. Every single time. But then we want to talk about Black issues, and some people want to be on mute. Some people don't want to talk about it. Even some people white on the left. I'm going to call it out. Some white leftists who are in this space don't want to talk about Black issues. Let's be real. And then shit hits the fan for the rest of America, and they're like, oh my God, who could have saw this happening? We did. We did. We told you it was happening. But then you didn't want to cover Black issues, and now guess what? It's happening to everybody. You want to know why the Black radical tradition was so powerful? Because we were further along the shit creek without a paddle than you were. And we saw the waterfall or the doo-doo fall before y'all did, and we were frantically trying to paddle backwards or try to get backwards as much as possible. And some people weren't paying attention. And now that we fell over, now we're watching you guys go way over top. And we're like, hey, look, they're about to fall over now too. This is why it is important to pay attention to marginalized groups who go through stuff. There's now been a report that they're now trying to designate the laws and the treatment of trans people as a genocide. Ah, who would have thought that was going to happen? Guess what? A lot of people who are trans did. Pay attention to the marginalized groups and how they're treated, because you're next. We've been saying this. Are you listening? The crazy part is some people don't want to pay attention because they'll think, oh my God, it's just woke. Oh my God, it's just you guys are being rad libs. No, this is an economic issue as well. This is why I personally am not a race reductionist and I'm not a class reductionist. I believe in intersectionality, because if you see it happening to people who are of a particular identity, then maybe, just maybe, if they're more disenfranchised as a class in a class analysis, then maybe, just maybe, class and identity intersect. And that's what we see in this country. So are you paying attention to what happens to Black people in your neighborhoods, in your countries, in your cities, in your towns, in your states? If not, I suggest you do, and then prepare accordingly. And also have solidarity with people of these marginalized groups so that even if things get bad, you're trying to soften the blow against what this country, what the corporate parasites are doing against your fellow people. Workforce policy changes compound the risk. While the apprenticeship programs expanded in 2025, initiatives aimed at advancing African-American workforce participation stalled or eliminated. The reports find that the combination sets the stage for reinforcing racial inequality rather than closing gaps, particularly in sectors that centers the district's economy. Housing remains one of the most entrenched challenges. Nationally, Black home ownership stands at 45%, compared to 74% for white households. That is generational wealth. That's generational wealth, y'all. And the thing is guess what? That's class and identity together. It says in the Washington region, where housing costs remain among the highest in the country, the Joint Center warns that elevated interest rates, tighter credit, and weakened consumer protections threaten to widen that divide even further. So, this is why it is important that we talk about this. And on top of it, let's also realize this, that the Democrats also sit on their hands when things like this happen. Or they will create conditions that basically rack the balls up or set the pins up for the GOP to do a strike. And that's what happens because both parties work in tandem with each other for big corporate powers, for the corporate parasites that aim to rule over us. Some of them met in Davos a few days ago at the World Economic Forum. So I think this is why it's so important that we pay attention, right? We talked about police brutality, right? Everybody talked about what happened with George Floyd back in 2020. And then the same thing happened to Tony Timpa. Somebody kneeled on his neck for 14 minutes. Tony Timpa died. Was there any drugs in his system? No, but he still died. Which also means that if George Floyd died because he had a knee on his neck, then guess what? That means somebody like Tony Timpa died. Well, it couldn't have been drugs what killed him. It was actually because asphyxiation by having a knee on your neck. So this is why it's important that we continuously pay attention. And if we don't, we're done for. Let me share this as well. Because a lot of people right now who are going through what we're going through, we didn't want this to happen to anybody. And we wanted this to stop for us. Because happening to us is bad. But now we have to watch it happen to other people. So now I'm going to share with you guys an article that I wrote just yesterday. So let's get into this. And I'll share the link to my article with you guys as well. Black Americans showed you that our rights weren't rights, but temporary privileges. So I said in a tweet, I says, I guess we don't have the Second Amendment rights in this country, do we? Here's what I said. This question that I posed was not me asking because I don't know the answer. This was a rhetorical question for people to think. When it comes to the Second Amendment rights, Black people never really had it. The comedian George Carlin stated that if our rights can be taken away, they weren't really rights to begin with. They were privileges. The brutalization of our bodies, while it gets rationalized by law enforcement and the state, happens to us all the time. But one thing is for certain, if they did it to us, then they will do it to you. We have said those words constantly for decades, and now you see it happening to more white people than ever before. Here is the Black Panthers at the state house. I'm sorry, the California State Capitol in Sacramento. It says, remember when Sonia Massey was shot in the face? What was the outrage? Then Renee Good was shot in the face by ICE. It's not a new thing that white people are being harmed by law enforcement. But what is new is that the brutality against these white people are being rationalized by the state as well as law enforcement, including in some media outlets. This latest iteration of the brutalization of white people is now apparent with the murder of Alex Jeffrey Pretty. So now people are realizing that fascism is like a boomerang. When you throw it towards others, it will come back to you. And that is Alex Pretty come from in front of an ICE agent as well. By the way, Alex Pretty was a VA ICU nurse that also had a legal permit to have a gun, which he had behind him in his holster, and he was not holding it. The only thing he's holding is a phone. And he was trying to save a woman from being pepper sprayed by ICE agents because ICE agents are bullies that are given a badge and a gun by our government. And so he was trying to protect her. It says, I hope more people will wake up and realize what is happening. But I'm afraid that so many of us are so busy trying to take care of ourselves and survive that we won't know what's really happening until it's too late. This is why it's up to us and independent media and organizers to sound the alarm. This alarm should be rang not just during GOP administrations, but also during Democratic administrations as well, because they are the ones that set the stage for a GOP administration to carry out these types of fascist policies. What will happen now? I think that it will reach a precipice where somebody in law enforcement, ICE, will lose their life because of people being tired of being brutalized. Then the state will escalate matters even further by putting the military into these areas to carry out more mass arrests and brutality. A police state will become more apparent as this develops further. And I didn't say that a police state will start, because for Black people, we've been living in a police state for a long time. Just ask any one of us. Ask how we feel whenever a cop stops us if we're driving down the street. Or in my case, when I was walking and I stopped by a convenience store to grab a couple of things, a police officer stopped me as I was walking, all because I looked at him weird. But we've been dealing with this for a long time. That's why I said it's more apparent. It feels like we are in a sort of shadow police state already due to mass surveillance that is being implemented by billionaire tech bros and pushed by intelligence agencies. Now more than ever, people need to start getting to know their neighbors so that we can become a more cohesive unit to survive the incoming wave of totalitarian tactics by the state. They will not be repealed or pulled back by Democrat administrations, and things may go silent for a short time, but they will re-emerge if/when they feel the power of corporations is threatened more intensely. But rest assured, this isn't new for Black people. And this is why it is important for us to listen to those of us who have been through this before, especially those revolutionaries who were martyred by the state because they show what it actually does when anyone dissents from corporate control. I foresee a brighter future, but this brighter future will be manifest with many scars. But just because we have those scars, it doesn't mean that the fight wasn't worth it. Stay strong, everyone. And I think this is why it's so important that we talk about this, because the people who go through this, we know what it's like. And we need to press forward and continue to fight against this, but with more solidarity as well. So what we see what's going on with unemployment, homelessness, lack of health care, right? Lack of education. All these things happening. Look at who it started with. We see genocides being carried out by our government. If you want to know about genocides, ask the Native Americans. Ask Black Americans. We know what that's like. And so it's important that we continue to push for a brand new system that is about humanity first instead of money and capital first. We can do it. We just have to wake up and put our hands together in order to make something better for ourselves and each other. Let's have solidarity, real solidarity with each other as we continue to make a brighter future. Go ahead and give a like to the stream. Thank you so very much. Let's get into... Let me check to see if we have any... Okay. We do have a Rumble rant. Let's get into that. Let's see here. All right. All right, let's share the screen. Get into the Rumble rant. All right. Thank you so much to Stoop Sign. Says, I knew a white liberal lady talking about how there was going to be a K-shaped recovery from the pandemic, so she would be all right. I instantly knew what shape a K was. Half going up, half crashing to zero. K is also the first letter in the word Karen. I'm sorry. Let me stop. Thank you very much for that. Let's get into the rest of this. All right. Oh, thank you very much for this, Kime. He says, I was on the last Savvy Mutual Aid workshop and Jaybe was one of the presenters. If you haven't participated in one, please do. Yes, thank you so very much. Yeah, that was great. It was awesome time. You see. Let me see. Zoya says, Fidel Castro began revolution with 82 men. Even if only a handful of people see Jaybe's work, post-algorithm suppression is worth more than 1 million consuming mindless content. Thank you very much for that. Yes. Rondo says, peace, 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 fam. Good to see you. 3 times for emphasis. All right. Let me see. Oh, yeah. Pat says, and this doesn't even factor in the people who are underemployed. Good point. Very good point. Appreciate that. Stoop Sign says a lot of states have $15 minimum wage, which is $30,000. I think when they take these stats, they use the median wages and not the mean. The mean would be artificially high, like you said. Yep. Yep, absolutely. Thank you so very much for that. Okay. Sean coming in and saying, sorry for missing out. Just finished watching Sabia's earlier stream. I definitely catch up tomorrow. No need to apologize. I'm glad you were able to catch Sabby's live as well. She does amazing work, and as our sister, I appreciate everything she does. She has been a real one, especially in this space. Tia says, live long and prosper. Live long and prosper to you, Tia. All right. Stats our savior says, watch out for house slaves. I mean, they do exist. We got to be careful about certain people who want to keep the system in place. So yes, awesome. All right, guys. So I'm going to make sure that I end this on a brighter note. I think I had something kind of funny that I wanted to share. Let me see. Did I? Let me see. Let me check this. I know I had something. Oh yeah, no. All right. I'm saving that for Tuesday. Okay. At least I got it. Saving that for Tuesday. And there was another one that I wanted, but for some reason I couldn't watch it. Anyway. But guys, I'm going to head on out. Plus, it's lunchtime. I got to get my grub on. But guys, this Tuesday I will be live on my channel as well. And if you guys would like to, you guys can tune into that. I don't know, man. I was thinking about starting a gaming channel. But at the same time, I'm like, I don't really have time. Like and plus, like once I get a job, I'll have even less time for that. But I was thinking about doing it because I do want to play some like classics. Like, for instance, I never played Legend of Zelda before. Like, I would do like a full reaction to that. You know, I would love to do like Ocarina of Time because a lot of people talk about stuff like that. But talk about that and then kind of incorporate like, political thought into what I see. I think that'd be kind of cool. But I don't think I have time for all that. Plus, I got to get back to my book readings anyway. And I don't want to overextend myself and burn myself out. That's one thing I wanted to, try to do, not burn myself out for 2026. So I'm going to pace myself. And so I'm thinking about it, but I'm leaning towards I probably won't do it, but we'll see. Also, I also have my podcast channel, Kind Connections Podcast, so you guys can tune into that. I missed this Tuesday on the 22nd, so I'll be doing some editing. I already did a recording with another guest, so that'll be coming out on February 11th, so you guys can see that on my new podcast channel. And then also this Tuesday, I will be live on Tuesday for the regular Jaybe channel show, so you guys can watch and tune into that, which is also linked down in the description below. So guys, continue to do what you can. Roger said, I did my best to double stream you and Sabby, but she out louded you. Plus she's easier on the eyes than you. Look, just wait till I get my hair cut. Then I will be easy on the eyes too. Wait until I get my edge right. All right. Then I will have you questioning your attraction, Roger. Just kidding. I'm just kidding. Roger's gonna be like, why is Jaybe looking so fine right now? He looking 90s fine. I'll be looking Lorenz Tate and Morris Chestnut find. Oh my God. All right, guys. So, yeah, he's mean, but he means well. All right, guys, let me go. Guys, take care of yourselves. Like I always say, water your plants, water yourselves, leave the world better than you found it. Smoke them if you got them, drink them if you got them. If you ain't got them, then watch something funny because joy is revolutionary. Or read because reading is fundamental, which I plan on trying to do this week. And also, look, if you guys know of any open positions that are hiring for customer service, or if you are hiring for clerical or public relations, something like that, then hey, let a brother know. You guys can send it to my email that I have on all my videos for my channel. So you guys can send that to me. Just put in the tagline potential job or something like that, so I know exactly what's what. And then yeah, because Jaybe is actually looking for work. But yeah, so thank you guys so very much for tuning in, and I will see you guys in the next one. Mwah, forehead kisses. I will catch you guys in the next one. Have a great day and solidarity, friends.